Welcome, Badger families. My name is Jenny Schonsberg. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am part of the Parent and Family Program team here at UW-Madison. Our office serves as a central resource for all Badger parents and families, and we offer a variety of events and services, including these Badger Family Forums. Whether you're joining us live or watching this event at a later time, we appreciate you being here and supporting your student and UW-Madison. I also want to thank our partners at the McBurney Disability Resource Center for providing captioning for today's event. You can find the link for live professional captioning in the video description right below. The transition to a new school year can be both exciting and challenging for students as they settle into their new routines and academic pursuits. Our conversation today will cover the key topics that often arise during this period, ensuring that your student has the tools and knowledge needed to excel and enjoy their time on campus. Today, we are joined by a number of campus partners who will help answer your questions and share how you can support your students. First, we have Kim Miller. Kim works with the Office of Academic and Career Success as the Director of Learning Support. Kim has worked at UW-Madison since 2015 in the Wisconsin School of Business, University Relations, and now Learning Support. In her current role, Kim partners with over 15 learning centers on campus to provide inclusive tutoring and peer mentoring experiences for students throughout UW. Next, we have Erin Warner. Erin is from University Housing and is the Director for Off-Campus Housing. Erin enjoys working with students and their families to navigate the ever-changing campus area housing market. And Erin is also a Badger mom herself. Her daughter is a member of the UW class of 2024, and her son is a member of the UW class of 2026. So she understands the excitement of being a Badger parent. Jennifer Horace is with the Dean of Students Office. She's the Assistant Director and she has worked at UW-Madison since 2018. In the Dean of Students Office, in addition to helping students navigate campus resources, she supports students who have experienced hate and bias incidents. Before joining the Dean of Students Office, she worked in the Office of Compliance as an investigator. She has a bachelor's from the University of Illinois Urbana, a master's from Indiana University, and a doctorate from Clemson University. Last, we have Barb Kautz-Whitwer. Barb is the Director of Leadership Development in the Center for Leadership and Involvement. Barb has been at UW for over 20 years and has worked with hundreds of student organizations, in addition to leadership development programs for emerging and seasoned students. She's an expert on finding ways to help students get involved at UW and find their niche on campus. Thank you, panelists, for being here with us today. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions in advance of this session. If you have a question during our program today, feel free to submit them in the comment section on the Facebook feed. We have staff there on standby to answer questions as they come in live, or they will feed it to our panel for follow-up and a deeper answer. To get that comment section warmed up, let's hear where you're watching from. So share in those comments where in the world you're joining us from. We know the Badger family extends far and wide, and it's always such a joy to see how far these forums are going. So we're so excited to see who is joining us today. And if we do not cover your question, or if you think of additional questions after we wrap up the episode today, please reach out to the Parent and Family Program via the dedicated family phone line or our email address, parent@uwmad.wisc.edu. We're here for you, and we would love to help however we can. So let's dive right in. Our first topic, we're going to talk about academic support services. So we know that our Badgers are incredibly talented and smart, but for some, this may be the first time they experience challenges in the classroom. Kim, I'm going to go to you first. Can you tell us how academic expectations at UW and in college are different from what students may be used to in a high school setting?
Yes, thank you for the question, Jenny. So I'll start with the experience in the classroom. One thing that can be really different for students from high school is just navigating the modality of how they are experiencing learning, and knowing that they will need to make connections between different types of learning environments. So your student may be going from a lecture to a discussion to a lab that are all required for just one course. So students will really need to be able to think about learning across different environments for where they're having that in-classroom experience. Another thing that comes up is thinking about the pacing of content. A professor may cover a lot of material in one lecture that will require students to have done a significant amount of review outside of class, which can be a bit different from high school, where the teacher may have had more responsibility with helping the student to navigate the pacing at which they were moving through course content. One thing that relates to that is thinking about how expectations for being prepared can be really different from faculty than what it might have been from a high school instructor. So your student will be given on the first day of class, or possibly prior to the first day of class, a course syllabus that they should read early and often. We encourage students to print it out, put it in the front of their binder or notebook, and have that be something that they're referencing on a regular basis before they go to lectures or discussions or labs. Everything that your student will need to know about course readings, course materials, assignments that they have, due dates for things will be located in the syllabus. Some professors will take time the first day of class to go through the syllabus, others will not. So the onus is really on your student for being able to take that time to review and make sure that they aren't missing any assignments or due dates that are coming up in class. Some things outside of the classroom that may be really different for your student now in college than in high school is that the bulk of required coursework is done outside of class. So while lectures may be sort of fast and furious in terms of the amount of content that's being covered, students will be expected to do a lot of independent learning outside of those lectures. We would encourage students to not think of this as homework in the way that they might have thought about assignments in high school as homework, because the work that they'll be doing outside of class will be really different from what's covered in lecture, and faculty will have an expectation that they have read and done the assigned readings outside of class to be ready for what's going to be addressed in the lecture. It is a lot, and often the assignments that students will have to prepare for class or to prepare for an exam will need to be done ideally over the course of multiple days and hours, and not right before class. So procrastination is not compatible with high quality college work, and we really encourage for students to think about how can they organize their schedule and how can they lean into some really good study skill habits. Another thing that I'll mention is that faculty are available to connect with students. They really enjoy that aspect of the work that they do on campus. But the impetus for doing that is really going to rely on the student. So the faculty is unlikely to be highly proactive in reaching out to students, just given the number of students that they work with across the different courses that they teach. So we would really encourage your student to be the one to reach out to the faculty, go to office hours, connect with them before and after class, and start to establish that relationship. That's going to be really helpful for them in class if there are things that they need to address with the faculty member, and also for experiences that might be not directly related to the course, but related to an academic interest that they have. So for example, having a really good connection with the faculty could lead to things like a great research opportunity with that faculty member down the line, or after they finish the course with that person. And then the last thing that I'll say about a difference between the high school and the college experience for students is that the dynamic of student relationships can be really different for what your students will be experiencing in class. In high school, they may have been coming from a very competitive environment where students were perhaps less shareful of helping each other out with assignments. In a university setting here, students have commented multiple times that it feels less competitive, and there's more of a reliance on working with your peers, both in and outside of the classroom, to have a really good academic experience.
Thank you so much. And, I really appreciate you laying down that baseline, because we know there are a lot of first-time college students who come to UW, parents, maybe a lot of them, family members, they've been out of college for a while, and it's very different from when they were here. So it's really great to have that very baseline information to start our conversation today. And with all those changes and adjustments, it is natural for students to struggle. And families will want to know what support is available for their students. So can you tell us more about the academic support services that we have here on campus?
Yes, thank you, Jenny. So we have a lot, and it can be very confusing and difficult for students to navigate. So the benefit of being at a large research institution is that there are a lot of resources. A drawback is that it can be really hard, especially for those first year students, to understand what is the best resource for them to go to. So I'm going to share a few different things that might help you break it down when you're talking with your student. There is one service on campus that provides academic support to any student, regardless of your in school area that they are studying, and it does not require your student to do anything other than show up. So the Greater University Tutoring Service, or GUTS, provides academic support to students across the spectrum. The types of academic support that are offered are drop-in tutoring. This is a really good service if your student has a quick question about something that came up in lecture, if they need some assistance with a course assignment. The tutors who are available at drop-in will be able to help them get through that one issue that they're experiencing. Another type of academic support that's offered is academic match tutoring. And this is an opportunity for your student to work with the same tutor and the same small group of students all semester in one course or more than one course that they're enrolled in. This is a really popular option for students, especially in the STEM areas, who know that assignments and the course content throughout the whole semester may be something that they will find challenging. Another type of service that's offered is language programs. So if your student is studying a foreign language, they can get practice and just having conversations in that foreign language that will be really helpful to them as they're studying the language in the classroom. And then finally, the last service that's offered through GUTS is study skills appointments. So if your student has a McBurney visa, we have a partnership with the McBurney Disability Resource Center where they can come in and get assistance with things like, how do I organize my schedule? How do I make it through all of these different reading assignments when I have 10 assignments all at the same time? How do I prep for a test that's multiple choice versus a test that's short answer? So those study skills for students with a McBurney visa and for students who don't have a McBurney visa, we have two different services that are offered to them, can be really helpful in just having a mentor that can coach you through how to stay organized and on top of your academic experience. Now, GUTS is only one of about 15 different learning centers on campus. So I bring that up to say there are generalist learning centers that will provide tutoring in any subject, and then there are subject-specific learning centers. So for example, chemistry has their own learning center, physics, math, all have their own learning center. So sometimes the learning centers are specific to a subject or a discipline. And then there are other learning centers that are seated within different schools or colleges. So the Wisconsin School of Business has their own learning center for business students. Engineering has their own learning center for all engineering students. So when your student is sort of navigating, where might I go for help with my academics, they could consider going to the learning center that's seated within their school or college if they have one. Or if they are, for example, a English major that just has to take one math course, going to the Math Learning Center would probably be the best resource for them. I am happy to share with Jenny so that she can put this out to everyone, contact information for who to contact if you are not sure of what is the best learning support resource. And I would say too that really encourage your student to participate and get involved with learning support. Depending on what school or college, your student might have a requirement to do engagement with a tutor or with a peer mentor. Engineering, for example, requires all of their students to regularly go to tutoring. There are other schools and colleges that don't have that requirement, but really highly encourage students to participate. So I would say this is sort of a normalizing behavior coming from high school. Your student may have been that student that was getting all A's, never needed, or like had a thought about engaging with learning support. In a university setting, that's sort of the opposite. So that idea is kind of flipped on its head, where all students, regardless of the grade that they might be getting, can really benefit from engaging in learning support activities, whether it's just socially getting to know other people and having that peer-to-peer connection, or just having an opportunity to meet with other students and get that course content reinforced outside of lecture and discussion.
Kim, that is amazing. Thank you so much for that overview. It's so reassuring to hear that we have a variety of options for all students, and then it drills down into kind of specialized areas. But I'd also like to put this out to our other panelists as well. There's so much experience in this room today. Do the three of you have any other tips or ideas for students that they can thrive in the classroom? Erin, I think I'm going to start with you.
Sure. I'm going to reiterate something that Kim said, and it's to encourage your student to go to office hours. So, in my previous role on campus, I worked with a lot of faculty and a lot of first year students. And faculty love to meet students. Um, your student doesn't have to go because they have a question or they need help. Just go and make that connection. It's a really nice opportunity. And unfortunately, it seems especially first year students don't take advantage of it. So encourage them to go and learn a little bit about their instructor and tell the instructor a little bit about them. Those connections, as Kim said, could pay off down the road. If nothing else, they've found just a little more support on this campus.
Thank you so much. Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. My suggestion would be to meet with your academic advisor on a regular basis. This is a resource that often students don't utilize until it's time to register for classes, but they can be a wealth of knowledge about activities and learning opportunities that take place throughout the academic year. So they should be building that connection and staying connected with that person throughout the year, not just at registration time. I also would suggest finding a great study spot. Where we study, the environment in which we study affects how we focus. So I would always suggest students start to look for what is going to be the best place for them to study so that they can learn and get all those readings and assignments done.
Beautiful. And Barb, do you have any other tips for us? I know that was a lot already.
Yes. Well, the students I have seen be most successful on campus really schedule out their study time, their involvement time, whether that's student organizations or research or something else that they're involved with, and also downtime, time to socialize. And they really try to stick to that calendar because there's so many wonderful opportunities on this campus, and those time management skills are just critically important to staying on top of schoolwork and assignments. The students that I've seen, they stick to their planners, and sometimes veer off. There's a little flexibility there, but that's really helps them to be academically successful, as well as students getting involved in academic-based student organizations, and then they can connect with upperclassmen that know a lot of tricks of how to navigate that specific major or field of study that they're interested in, can let them know early on about internships and things that might be really helpful to them as they become upperclassmen themselves. So those are some tips that I would add to the conversation.
Great. Thank you so much. So we know families are in a very tricky space right now. This is a hard time of life, in that it's hard to quickly pivot from being an active parent and very involved to taking that more hands-off approach and encouraging their students' independence. So some of our audience, they're used to getting report cards and these regular updates. Jennifer, I'm wondering if you could share, will families receive any communication or updates if their student is struggling?
So unfortunately, no. Students records are protected by a federal law called FERPA. So the student has complete control over who has access to their grades and how they're doing. I think the fastest way that parents can get information about the students' course progress and how they're doing academically is to speak directly with the student. On our end, we will be encouraging students to have open and honest conversations with you about where they're being successful, but also where they're struggling. So feel free to ask your student directly, how are things going? And they have access to that information in their each of their course websites, but also through their MyUW page.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to transition a little bit out of the academic support because we know that classroom time is just one part of the student's experience here at UW. Badgers have many competing priorities. Some of them work, some of them are volunteers around the Madison area, and obviously there are the social aspects of being a college student. So Barb, I'm going to go with you on this one. What advice do you have for students as they strive for academic and social balance?
Well, thanks for that question. Well, we know when we look at the research out there that students who get involved on campus, who partake in co curricular activities, are more likely to stay in college. They have better affinity for the institution. They've experienced increased sense of belonging. So there's a lot of really great benefits to getting involved. Now, there's not a magic number for every student about how much time that you should dedicate into extracurricular activities. But when we look at some of the research out there, there's a sleep study, and it says, how much should students get involved where it doesn't impact their sleep? And they say about 10 hours a week of involvement doesn't impact sleep. And we all know sleep is very important, but every student is a little bit different. Some students have the capacity to take on more, and some students have the capacity to take on less. Um, Different students are dealing with different barriers, different things surrounding mental health, different things around adjusting to the college experience and how to balance that coursework with other commitments like work and outside involvement. So my recommendation to students is that if you get involved, you can always take a step back if you feel like there's too much on your plate. But I would say getting involved in at least one thing is really got a lot of benefits for students as they adjust to the college experience and really find out what those passions are in terms of majors or field of studies that they're interested. Getting involved is a great way to kind of test those things out in an environment where it's not something that you're committed to doing for the rest of your life. You're learning about different things, you're experiencing different populations. It's just a really great way to learn more about yourself and others.
Thank you so much. And so we know that there's a ton of options for that on campus, right? So are there events or other ways in particular that can connect students to campus and their interests that are maybe coming up in the next few weeks?
Absolutely. We have a really large event coming up next week on Tuesday and Wednesday called the Student Organization Fair. That'll be from 5 to 8 in the Cole Center. And I can drop a chat that can be shared out with the group that has some tips about attending the Student Organization Fair. There's over 400 student organizations there to choose from, but that's not all of our student organizations. We actually have over 1,000. But students can go around and have some conversations, get some literature and free candy, which is very popular, and find out more about student organizations. We also have things like the study abroad session for new freshmen coming up. That's on Wednesday. It's called Study Abroad 101 First Year Student Welcome Info Session. I know that's something typically upperclassmen do, but it's never too early to learn about it. And there are some programs for students that are freshmen and sophomores. That's Wednesday, September 13th from 4 to 5. They'll also have a fair at the end of the month on the 26th from 3 to 6. And then there's the Mortgage Center for Public Service fair coming up. I believe that's in mid-September. I'll work with Jenny to get the dates for you. We have MCOR, which is the multicultural orientation and reception tonight. And they also have org fair next week called the Meetup next Friday night. And that's a smaller group of student organizations that are cultural and identity based organizations. So lots of really cool things to do and lots of fairs, which is really nice because those are low pressure events. You can kind of just get a sampling of all of those different things, find out more information, talk to some folks, see if you make some good connections. But lots of our students say, things like the student organization fair, they went to that, probably signed up for like 25 groups and ended up finding a couple that were really a good fit for them.
Yeah, and Win is the online way that you can search for those, right? So
Yes.
so there are these fairs that it is very casual and low pressure, and you can just kind of explore. But if even getting out there in front of people, a student really wants to just explore from their screen, we have Win, which I don't know. Do you want to talk about that really quickly?
Yes. Win.wis.edu is a great website. It has those 1,000+ student organizations listed. Students can search by different categories, different keywords. So it's really easy to navigate because sometimes over 1,000 organizations is a bit intimidating, but it will really help them narrow down to maybe 5 or 6. And then they can look at those. They can email or message the primary contact, find out about their social media, which is a way that many of our student organizations communicate with students who are interested in attending their events. It also has an events calendar, so you can go to different student organization events that are open to all of campus. And it also has a way to search for perks. So if your student is looking for some free food on campus, you can search by that perk. And then you can find out all about all of those really fun events that are going on.
I did not know about the perk search with the free food. That's amazing, and that's definitely how I would have been scheduling my calendar during college. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention again that Wisconsin Welcome continues through the end of the month. Wisconsin Welcome is something put on by the Center for First Year Experience, which the parent and family program is part of. Oh, I'm sorry. We changed our name. The Office for Student Transition and Family Engagement. I don't know if you all knew that, but we have a new name. But anyway, that's where Wisconsin Welcome is through. And Wisconsin Welcome is the curated list of events and offerings that happen the first few weeks of school, all the way through the end of September, to really get students involved and let them know all the different ways they can connect to UW. So plug for Wisconsin Welcome selfishly, but also want to mention that that housing does a good amount of scheduling programming and events for students to get involved. So Erin, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that and what housing has to offer
Sure.
involved and connected?
Yeah, so I think we all know that every student right now is probably looking to meet new people. So housing does this really cool thing called the Wisconsin Late Night Series. So it's usually an event every Friday and Saturday evening. There's something for everyone. So pottery classes, karaoke. There's an upcoming one that they're doing like an amazing race event. Last weekend, there were 2 events. One was Adopt a Bamboo Plant. We had 1,800 students show up for that event. So if your student's looking to make connections, that's 1,800 potential connections they could make by coming. We did a canvas painting one last week, and again, it was over 1,000 students in attendance. These are free for the residents of the UW residence halls. They're very popular. The RAs are there. The residence life staff is there. One other thing I will touch on that we get questions on quite a bit is sort of what is the role of the RA for the student or the residence assistant? Some of you may know these, know the term as house fellow here at UW. We call them residence assistants or RAs. So the RAs roles are to be there as a resource for your student. So they will help your student plan activities. So for example, if your student has an idea for something they think may be a fun activity for people on their floor in their dorm, they should reach out to their RA. They act as a resource. A lot of the things you're hearing today, the RAs would be able to point students in that direction. Where to go for tutoring, suggestions for good study spaces, and things like that. The RAs are there to also solve problems, right? There's bound to be some bumps along the road, roommate conflicts, or things like that. And the RAs are a wonderful resource to help with that. And finally, the RAs are there to enforce the policies. While none of our students would break the rules, every now and then they maybe need to be reminded. And so that's really the role of the RAs.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you to all of our panelists for your wonderful input so far. I want to acknowledge we're about halfway through our event. So for those of you that maybe joined us a little late, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. If you missed the first part of our event, or you want to go back and watch later, maybe you'll want to share this with another family member who couldn't make it live, or you can even share this session with your student. All of these sessions are recorded automatically, and they're available at the exact same link that you used to get here. So whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can come back to this content anytime, or go back to the beginning and watch again. I also want to remind everyone who is watching that we do provide closed captioning, courtesy of our wonderful colleagues at the McBurney Disability Resource Center. Links for captioning can be found in the description below the video. And lastly, if you are tuning in on Facebook, please feel free to leave comments or questions or thoughts in the chat. I've been kind of watching on the side over here, and it looks pretty lively. We have staff on standby there who can either respond, or they'll pass those questions on to us for clarification and follow up later in the program. We welcome your feedback and even a quick hello. At the beginning, we were talking about where we were from and where we were tuning in from, so feel free to add that if you haven't already. Like I said, we love to see how far and wide the audience extends. Lastly, if we do not get to your question today, or if you think of a follow-up question later on, you can always reach out to us at the Parent and Family Program. Our email is parent@uwmad.wisc.edu, or call us at 608-262-3977. We're going to move into our third section of the event today, and we're going to talk about how to build that supportive community as a family member. How can you be there to support your student? And we know students are eager to be on campus and have that full college experience, most especially those student activities and that social life that we talked about, which can include some high-risk behaviors such as binge drinking or alcohol-related misconduct. Jennifer, can you please tell us about the opportunities UW has for education and prevention in these areas, and maybe some of the conversations you recommend families have to support safe behaviors?
Yes, absolutely. I want to start by stating that UW-Madison offers a lot of opportunities for students to be social, to get to know people that don't involve any alcohol or any high-risk behavior. Some places where they can go to look for that include housing, which Erin spoke about earlier, about all the late night activities that they do. There are also activities in the unions and our recreation facilities, and athletics, et cetera. They're just wonderful spaces for students to build community, to be involved as leaders, but also to be able to not have to engage with any high risk or alcohol use or abuse. Regarding parents who want to support their student in having a safe and productive time here at UW-Madison, I would suggest that they engage in open and honest communication. So I would prepare the student by asking questions about, okay, what is your plan if you are with someone who has overconsumed alcohol? Have them come up with a plan for them as a small group of friends who are out. Like, what if someone offers us a drink we don't want? What is our plan to get out of that situation? And so just engage in the conversation. Don't say that, oh, this will never happen. Say, okay, what can we do to move forward? And what is your plan if you're in that situation? But definitely look into those opportunities to get involved on campus where there aren't any alcohol or drugs available.
Thank you, Jennifer. These are hard conversations to have, but so important to our students' safety and well-being. And so kind of to dig into that a little bit more, parents and families, they're wondering about the role they can play in supporting their student. So one person wrote in, when I notice my student is troubled and depressed, what can I do to help them open up and talk about what's bothering them? I know you mentioned having that open communication, but sometimes these students, they don't want to open up and talk. So another parent said, how can I check in on my students' well-being without being intrusive? I think this is actually a great question for the entire panel, but Barb, I'll start with you. What tips do you have to help parents and families start that conversation with their students about their well-being?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and it's a tricky thing to do. I think starting off talking about, well, what are you liking about the experience? What's, giving you energy? What are you excited about? And then kind of as you talk about kind of some of the positive things, what are some of the challenges you're experience? What are some of the barriers that you're navigating? And just talk through some of those things. And you all are so good to be in a space like this to learn about all the great resources on campus. So you can say, hey, I went to that webinar and I think they have a really, great tutoring service. If that's something that is a barrier for you, or, coming here and maybe being in high school where you didn't have to study quite as much and things kind of came naturally, um and then talking about how it's really normal to have more challenges when you come to an academic space that is highly rigorous. And sometimes there's challenges with kind of finding your place and space on campus. And it does take a while. You might not really settle in. So I think normalizing those things, talking about great resources that we have available, just encouraging folks to check those things out. Hey, what, just go have one appointment with the counseling center. You never know, you might really like that. That might be helpful to you, and if not, we can circle back and brainstorm about maybe some other strategies that might be more helpful to you moving forward, in your college first semester.
Thank you so much, Barb. Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah. So I love how Barb started off with some questions that you can ask. I know some students, some people in general, when you give you a fine and they try to move on with the conversation. So just try some different questions that are very specific about their well-being, their thought life, etc. So what have you been thinking most about today? When was your last meal? Was your last full meal, or have you been drinking water? You can make comments like, "Oh, I see you've been very busy. How are you sleeping?" Especially for those students have been up late at night and have early morning courses. And for students who are typically physically active when they were in high school, ask them, how have you been staying physically active since you've been on college campus? That's asking about their well-being without directly not hitting onto their mental health, and they may be more open to having a discussion from that point.
Feel free to chime in as well.
Yeah. So, sorry, you kind of cut out for a second there. I did. So for those of you who heard my intro, I actually am a mom to 2 Badgers. So I understand this better than anybody, or I'm in the same shoes as all of you. So I'm going to share sort of what I've done. I stole this from a parent of older students. And when my kids headed off to UW, one of the things that I asked them to do, I didn't know if it would work. It's been pretty good, but I asked them to send me a text once a day. I didn't care what the text was. And again, families, whatever your communication is, I've heard families that do group texts, or they have like a joke chain in the email or something. Find whatever's comfortable for your family. But for my Badgers, I asked them to send me a text a day. I didn't care what it was. My daughter would sometimes tell me she had mac and cheese for lunch, or she'd tell me that her shoes were uncomfortable, so she needed new ones. My son tended to be send me a picture of my cat, or tell dad to text me back about fantasy football, right? But this served a really good role. First of all, it gave me some comfort knowing that they were there. But the big thing I was trying to do was remind them that I was just a text away. So if they needed me, when they would text, I would respond back quickly, very positively. I wasn't putting any pressure on them about their academics or their social life. I just wanted it to serve as a reminder that I was still there as their support, with that unconditional love, right? So again, I would encourage you as a family to find something that's going to work for you. If it's the text, if it's the group chat, if it's whatever, but any way you can remind your students that you're still there for them, even though they're not seeing you every day, that goes a long way.
Thank you, Erin. I think this is the first time we've had a Badger parent as one of our Badger Family Forum panelists. And so it's really been amazing to hear your perspective and your tips from kind of like living out there in the trenches. Kim, I know you said you have something to add too.
Sure. One thing I think about a lot when communicating with students is where is the message coming from and who are they likely to listen to or respond to best when it comes, especially to a topic that can be harder to talk about, like your physical, mental, all over well-being as a person or how they're doing in their classes. So knowing that you as a parent, you know what your relationship is like with your student, you may have a guess as far as who on campus they are connected to or who on campus might be able to deliver a message or have a conversation with your student in a way that they'll be receptive to and open to. So thinking about encouraging parents and family members to sort of lean into folks who are here at the institution who can serve in that supportive role and provide that same message to a student that you as a family member may also want to provide. I know sometimes the message can just land different when it's coming from multiple sources or from different sources in terms of encouraging students to really think about and prioritize their personal well-being. In the learning support space, for example, there's a lot of different ways that students can get support, and sometimes it really just comes down to them being more comfortable getting support and talking to somebody who is a peer rather than a faculty member, or somebody who's a graduate student and who's not a peer. Within the learning support space, there are people from sort of across the spectrum of fellow undergraduate students, first years through seniors, graduate students, and faculty who work in the different learning centers providing tutoring and other types of support to students. And so students can really take their time to sort of navigate that landscape and figure out where is a place that they feel most comfortable and safe getting support or having a conversation. And that can look really different from student to student. So that's just one example within learning support. And within these other spaces that the other panelists have talked about, there's also a lot of different ways that your student might be able to engage and have some conversations about wellness with folks that they feel really comfortable with.
Thank you, Kim. That was such an important alternative kind of strategy for families to think about. And if families don't know where to start and who could be that person for their student to kind of redirect that message or have it just come from a different place, just going to put a plug out there for PFP, Parent and Family Programming. We're the folks that you can start with. So if families don't know where to go, start with us and we can help connect you or figure out what that next step might be for you and your student. Now, on the other hand, we have our students. Our students, they encounter personal health, academic struggles. They don't always know where to start and where to go to for help. So Jennifer, I'm going to come back to you with this question. Can you explain more about the Dean of Students and their role and how they can help students and support students when the students don't know where else to go?
Absolutely. So the Dean of Students Office is a support, assistance and support office where we help students who are navigating personal, academic, health issues, or just trying to navigate just the big campus that we have. We offer support to students through one-on-one conversation, through email, virtual, however they prefer to connect. And we are available for drop-in service where the student just wants to come in person to meet with us Monday through Friday during normal business hours. But they can also always just send us an email to say, hey, I would like somebody to reach out and call me to help me understand what support services are available to us. During our conversations with students, we are not their therapist, but we will connect them with confidential counseling if that's something that they need or wish to be connected with. But sometimes we're just connecting students to other offices on campus where they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do if I confront this problem? How do I have this difficult conversation with this person? How do I call my parents and tell them I'm struggling? We help them navigate that and we make sure that they get whatever support they need.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
The Dean of Students it's a wonderful resource. And really we kind of see it as like the other side of the coin when it comes to this almost like concierge service for how to navigate campus. If you don't know where to go, where to start, families start with PFP and students can start with the Dean of Students office. So we're going to pivot now to a topic that I know is top of mind for a lot of families. I saw it mentioned in the chat a couple times already, and that's thinking about housing already for next year and beyond. So, Erin, you get to get featured for a little while now, but even though this year has just started, families are already talking about housing for next year, the 2024-2025 year. One family wrote in to share, I've heard students often find apartments for sophomore year starting in October of their freshman year. This is our first time as a Badger family. How does our student navigate this process without knowing a lot of people? So, Erin, I wonder, is there anything you'd like to share now for families to start thinking about regarding future housing and starting to make those plans?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want everybody to know that my office is a brand new office that the university created because they realize this is a pressure point for students and families. So as a parent, I'm grateful for the university for understanding this and listening to families and their struggles and creating this. So now let's hope that I can help all of you through this so it isn't such a pain point. One thing that I will say is it is true. There will be students signing leases in October for next year. Some of them will even be freshmen. Will all students do this? No. And that's totally okay. My advice is if you have a student who knows exactly where they want to live, knows exactly what amenities they want, exactly which location they want, then yes, it's totally fine for them to sign a lease in October. If you have a student who's still trying to get their feet under them, meet some people, learn more about Madison and the various housing opportunities for students around Madison, then yes, it's okay to wait. I think every family needs to make this decision based on their student and their particular situation. I realize it sounds bananas. We all know it sounds bananas. Unfortunately, that's the market, and that's why we're here to help your students and you navigate it. I do have a couple of tips. I know families are getting very anxious about this. Um, if you want to help your Badger, right? Like we've done so much talking today about helping your Badger learn to self advocate and taking a step back as a parent. This is actually one area that I think parents can add a lot of value to their students. Most of our students have never signed probably a legally binding document, something like a lease. Or lived independently and had to do things like pay utilities. So, as parents and families, if you want to help your Badgers, areas that I would encourage you to help them with are setting a budget, setting a housing budget, and looking at all the various things that should be considered in that budget: rent, security deposit, renter's insurance, utilities, parking, pet fees, things like that. I would also help your student come up with kind of a list of both wants and needs, right? Like they may want a rooftop swimming pool. Do they need a rooftop swimming pool, right? But they may need a building with an elevator, or they may need a building with a private bathroom or something. So help your student kind of come up with that list of wants and needs. Really, really encourage them to do research and visit lots of properties. So as they're walking around campus now and learning campus in the various Madison neighborhoods, if they see a building that seems like it's interesting, jot down the name, look at their website, call them up for information, set up visits, ask a lot of questions, right? They're making a business decision and they are the customer, so they should feel empowered to do this. Also, when they are ready to sign a lease, I would really, really encourage you to help them go through that lease. I helped both of my students. I can tell you, I hadn't looked at a lease since I was a student here way long ago. And it's confusing and it's hard. And I think it's a really good idea for you to help them go through that lease. I will say that we do have a couple of really helpful events coming up, and I think we're going to get them plugged, but I'm going to say those. I'm going off script, you guys. Sorry, I jumped out of order, but we're going to be doing a webinar similar to this on September 28th at 4 p.m. We will get a lot of marketing out about it, but the whole topic of that webinar will be securing housing for next year and the various options. Also, there will be a student housing fair on October 2nd at Union South from 3 to 6 p.m. This is super chill, low stakes. There will be a bunch of local property managers there that will have tables set up, and it's a really nice way for your student to kind of walk through and get an idea of what's out there, and more details like that. I will tell you that if you want to start looking for housing now, it's unlikely you're going to find information about availability or pricing for next year yet, because they do give students currently living in places the right of first refusal. So they're given the opportunity to renew. If they choose not to renew, then pricing for that unit along with availabilities will be posted and shared. I guess I'll just jump right in because I know we're running low on time. People often ask about returning to the dorms for a sophomore year or the residence halls. While housing will have space for some students to return, it is not guaranteed like it was for your freshman year. So I want to stress that again. The residence halls are not a guarantee for sophomore year or beyond. There will be spaces. The opportunity to apply to return to the residence halls will be occurring between October 18th and 25th. Your student will apply to return in their UW housing portal. They will get a lot of information about it. They will get email reminders. They will get, there will be information posted in the residence halls and in the dining halls. And there's a lot of information about the process for returning on the housing website. The easiest way to get there is with the web address go.wisc.edu/return. Or you can just simply, Google returning to residence halls on the UW website, and all the dates and the process are outlined there.
Thank you so much, Erin. And I appreciate you just kind of like going through and hitting all of our talking points so that we could move on to kind of our closing now. So I know there's been some questions in the chat that we've been covering too, but I do want to give you time. I'd love for our panelists. Do you have any closing thoughts? Is there anything we missed that you want to make sure that families know about your area or just about this time of the semester before we kind of finish up the event today? That's not to anybody specific, so whoever wants to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one thing that I'll share out, which is just encouraging your student that the earlier they can get connected with learning support, the better. It is better to not wait until after they get that midterm grade back or after they get their first major test grade back to decide that they're interested in getting connected in with tutoring and learning support. So if your student at all thinks that they would benefit from having that type of mentoring and academic coaching, please do encourage them to reach out as soon as possible. I will also mention that some of the learning centers have an application process that students need to go through before they'll be accepted to work with tutors or to work with that learning center. And that can be challenging for some students. Chemistry, for example, we have a really wonderful learning center, and there's about 6,000 students every semester that enroll in Chem 103, which is one of the required courses for a lot of our different majors on campus. The Chemistry Learning Center can help about 2,000 students per semester, and they do require an application process and for students to have a half an hour face-to-face meeting with somebody before they are accepted in. That means that there's about 4,000 students who are also taking Chem 103 who may not be able to access resources from the Chemistry Learning Center. So this is where your student may need to do a little bit of shopping around when it comes to thinking about getting academic support. This isn't to say that there isn't a resource available for them, but it may take more than one time reaching out or more than one connection point with the Learning Center before they find something that will work for them. Some of the learning centers are also restricted to students who are within a certain school or college, or students who have a specific scholarship program or historically underrepresented identity on campus. So just something for your student to be mindful of, and also part of the reason why the earlier they can get connected in, the better it is. If they're not sure where to go, I encourage them to reach out to the Greater University Tutoring Service, because they can help your student get directed to a resource that is really going to help them, whether it's through GUTS or through another learning center.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much. And we know that our Badgers are persistent. So if you don't hear, if you don't get what you need from that first ask, you're going to keep asking around, and there's someone out there that will help you and connect you where you need to be. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other closing comments from our panelists?
I was just going to suggest that they bookmark the Dean of Students Office website so that it is available when the student does have a question or they're encountering a problem. Our office is not an office students just drop by on a regular basis, even though we're available, we can. We want to make sure that when it is, they do have a question, when it's in the middle of a problem, that they can know that they can reach out to us and they know how to do that. So maybe we can include the website in the chat for assistance.
Thank you. And now I see that we have that behind the scenes, so I'm sure we'll share that out on the Facebook chat out there. Barb, Erin, any last things? Or
I would just say that I know this is a big transition for parents and families, but give yourself a pat on the back. Your student is here because of your love and support. You've done a lot for them. And while your role is changing, your love and support should continue on. And honestly, all of us here are invested in your student success. So know that there are plenty of us here that are going to watch out for them and help them do great things.
Thank you, Erin. I absolutely echo that wholeheartedly. We all care so much about our students and all Badgers and students that are here. Barb?
I would just say utilize resources. You as a parent or family member, utilize the resources that are available to you, but also encourage your students to utilize the resources that are here for them. There are so many wonderful resources that just make the college experience that much easier, and can really help your student along this 4-year journey.
Absolutely. So thank you, panelists. You're all amazing. I always learn so much doing these sessions, and today is no exception. Appreciate your wisdom and everything that you're able to share. As a reminder to everyone watching, this session is recorded, so you can watch it again at any time via the link or via our Badger Family Forum website. We have 2 things we want to remind folks of. We want to make sure that you save the date for Family Weekend. It's our big parent and family program event every year. This year, it's October 20th through the 22nd. Registration is open now, so you can follow the link that's on the screen to sign up. The second announcement I want to make is that we have our next Badger Family Forum topic already secured. And I know there was a few comments in the chat about campus safety and some of the things that have gone on recently. And we shared in the chat information about the Badger Safe app. However, know that we are spending an entire hour on this topic for our October event. That will be October 6th from noon to 1. We try to do these the first Friday of every month from noon to 1. And this one will be, again, focused on campus safety, and we'll actually be able to have a conversation with the chief of UW Police, Chief Roman. So she will be there with us, and we'll bring in some other folks to help talk about the full kind of context of campus safety and kind of some things that UW is doing to make sure that your students have as safe an experience as possible. Again, want to reiterate that we are here to provide any support you or your student may need. If we did not get to your question today, or if you think of a follow-up question later, or if there's something totally unrelated, you can always reach out to us at the Parent and Family Program at parent@uwmad.wisc.edu, or you can call us at 608-262-3977. We're happy to help with anything that may come up. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take care. On Wisconsin.